Hey guys, it is Jo and welcome back to Trauma Talk. Thank you for tuning in today. We're talking today about emotional needs and how having them does not mean that abuse that happened to you was your fault. So this took me a really long time to wrap my head around. For a very long time, I think subconsciously I thought that because I had emotional needs like wanting to be cared for and wanting to be loved and wanting to be seen and heard and known, that those things in me were bad and had caused this abuse to happen. That was never the case. But I think I only figured out this last year that I believed those things and that those beliefs led to issues in my current relationship and were just disordered thinking. Let me explain what I mean. So I think we often end up in relationships that are abusive, never because we want to be in abusive relationships, but because we are looking for things that need to be met in relationships, like wanting to be loved and looking for someone who cares about us and listens to us and is there for us and provides whatever it is that we're looking for in someone. And oftentimes, abusers provide those things and a lot of other really horrible ones. So we are looking for these needs to be met. We, as humans, have these needs. We have relational needs. We are emotional creatures. We are community creatures. We need other people. At least the vast majority of us need other people to exist, even as introverts. We need close interpersonal relationships. And in those relationships, we have needs. That is not wrong. That does not mean what happened to you is your fault. Wanting to be loved does not mean that the person who you thought loved you and abused you somehow made that abuse your fault. So I believed that for a long time. I believed that because I allowed myself to need this person who ended up being the worst human I've ever known and ended up being a sociopath and ended up taking advantage of me and manipulating me, that I could never need anyone ever again, because that was such a mistake. Because having that emotional need led to all of this happening. And so I shut that down in me. And unfortunately, shutting down that emotional need led to issues in my, dating at the time, the man who I'm now married to. I couldn't say I needed you. I couldn't really let myself get close because that was way too dangerous. And the last time I did that, I was horribly hurt, like forever scarred by it. And so it took years and years of learning to trust him and working through things and breaking down those patterns in my head to realize that that need is not what caused the abuse. Needing another person, wanting someone to be there, wanting someone to listen to you, to listen to me, to listen to us is not wrong. If you believe that what happened to you is your fault because you were looking for a friend, because you needed a family member to be there, because you were in a relationship with someone and you loved them and you wanted to believe the best in them, or because you needed something from someone, or you were asking for help or whatever it was, if you believe that something that they did is your fault because of those things, please know that is not true. We feel that way, but that is not the reality of the situation. The reality is that we were abused because they were abusive people. We were hurt because they did hurtful things. Those things were never our fault. And I think it can take a really long time to open up those needs again because they feel so dangerous. They feel like the reason everything happened. And so if we just stay shut down, if we do not let anyone in ever again, then maybe we'll be safe, right? And I think on the one hand, that sounds like a good idea and sounds like a true idea. And on the other hand, it's not, because then we're just hurting ourselves by being so incredibly lonely and so, mostly that, isolated. And isolation leads to depression and anxiety and increased suicidal thoughts and a lot of other actual health problems. There's research that says isolation leads to that as well. And so isolating ourselves and shutting off emotional needs and not having people around us isn't the answer either. And I think perhaps the answer, at least what it was for me, I don't know what it is for you, but the answer for me was taking time to come to terms with the idea that what happened was not a result of wanting someone to be there for me, was not a result of wanting someone to listen. It just so happened that the person that I wanted to listen, that I wanted to be there, that I wanted to see me, that I wanted to hear me, that I wanted to take care of me and love me, manipulated me and used me and abused that desire in me. And that's a really common story. It happens to a lot of us. So if you're in the same situation, let me be the one to tell you, if no one has told you before, that it is not your fault. What happened to you is not your fault. People do really awful things, and they do awful things because they do awful things, and sometimes they're really awful people. I am continuing to try to work on identifying which pieces in my story I felt like were, I was at fault for. Because at first I felt like literally everything was my fault, and I've worked on piecing apart the truth and the lie in that, and realizing things aren't my fault. And I'm still working on that. I'm still working on figuring out if there's still emotional needs that I have shut down because I feel like they led to the abuse, or they led to the hurt, or they led to the whatever it is. So I am still in the process of that, but I have come to a place where I realize that it is not by any means my fault for having emotional needs. As humans, we are wired that way. You are wired that way. I am wired that way. And we can't escape from being people. We can't escape from having emotional needs. Unfortunately, sometimes bad people abuse that, but generally, people in general don't. And it is worth opening ourselves up again and trying to find safe people to trust, because there are safe people out there. And it's a process to do that, and that's a whole other video for another time, but I just want to talk today about how emotional needs do not lead to abuse, and that does not make that your fault. Have you ever struggled with that question of, because you had a need and that was taken advantage of, feeling like it was your fault? I don't think I'm the only one who feels like that, but I would love to hear your take on that. Leave your comments or your thoughts in the comment section below. I would love to hear what you're thinking. I am Jo Beckwith, and this is Trauma Talk. Thank you for tuning in today. As always, I sincerely so appreciate your time and your thoughts. If you are interested in hearing other videos like this, I talk on issues like life after trauma and living with mental illness, like depression, anxiety, and PTSD every other day. So make sure you hit subscribe before you leave, or like if you're on Facebook, and I will see you the day after tomorrow. Thanks, guys.